Today's guest is Jeff Kramer. He's the Vice President for DHS Portfolio at Karsun Solutions. And Jeff and I met during our journey when we went through the ACT-IAC Partners program all the way back in 2018. Jeff, we're getting old. It feels like we're getting old.
Long time.
But thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to it.
So for those who have not met you, had a chance to talk to you, share a bit about your background, who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I am from Annapolis, Maryland. So I'm from the Northern Virginia area. Nothing too spectacular about that. I mean, growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s was pretty cool from a technology perspective. I mean, I guess I'm a nerd at heart. I'd probably say that my dad had the biggest influence on that. He was an engineer. He was always dragging home gadgets and all kinds of things. Wow, I was probably in elementary school when he dragged home a Radio Shack TRS-80.
Oh, nice.
And yeah. But also known as the Trash 80, right?
Right.
So he was an engineer. He worked for a number of radio stations in the area, in the DC area, and was all about electronics, was all about fixing stuff, trying to improve things, trying to make things better. I mean, I would call him like a certified inventor, if you will, and he's kind of the driving force between where I entered the workforce and what I was interested in. So, yeah, probably the smartest guy I know to this day. But yeah, he had a big hand in shaping kind of where I am right now. But yeah, so he's dragging home these computers, and I'm just like, well, this is cool. Like I can be hands on keyboard and tell this machine to do stuff. So I'm like basic up to my neck and during the summer, and whenever I have any spare time, do video games and all kinds of cool stuff. And he just kept it going. So any incremental change in technology, we would get a different computer, better computer. I mean, we went from the ginormous discs to like the 5 1/4, the 3 1/2, and those types of things, which was in my mind fantastic. But he was always reading these electronic cookbooks, and I remember picking one up one day. I was in elementary school, and I picked up this electronic cookbook, and I thought it was going to be like, it's a cookbook, like where, there's food and whatever. No, it's all about like, diodes and resistors and oscilloscopes and motors and all kinds of physical things. And he always had like stuff going on either in the basement or the garage. He was always building something, whatever. So that's kind of where I got my love for, I guess, quote, being a geek, if you will. But yeah, I was programming BASIC when I was in elementary school, so that was super cool to me, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and it was I love to learn about different things. So, yeah, then I went to college at Western Carolina University.
Why Western Carolina?
So it's funny. So I'm an outdoor guy, right? I like to be outdoors. So I actually started at Radford University, and I went into a program called Management Information Systems. And I thought that was like, computer stuff. That was like, we're going to code and we're going to build stuff. We're going to do this. And it was like very touchy feely, very management, very like,
yeah.
I'm like, no. I want like hardcore stuff. They didn't have a computer science program. And so I was just looking around at places where I could blend kind of an outdoor type thing that was somewhere not around the DC area, because I love to travel and do those things. And so I wound up at Western Carolina University, and I was entering the computer science program. And I remember the first class that I was in, they're like, we're going to take out our computer and we're going to do an application, and it's going to be Hello World. And I'm just like, really? Like, this is for real? Like, we're going to do this? Like, I was doing this in elementary school. So I don't want to say it came easy. I was horrible at math. And that was the little bit of the thing that kind of threw me off a bit was, hey, I can write code and create any kind of program you want, but they're just like, no, you got to take like calculus and quantitative statistics and, this and that, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. So I made it through those classes. Eventually got my computer science degree, but that was kind of the genesis of the whole computer science. I mean, not to date myself, but yeah, being in the basement at Western Carolina and working on the VAX, cranking out the COBOL, having a good time, going to get getting up and going to get my Greenbrier printouts from the printout, checking the code and those things. So COBOL, Fortran, Pascal, I was like, yeah, this stuff is like, it made so much sense to me where a lot of other things in life didn't. And so that's it. It just kind of it worked for me. So graduated college and started with I wanted to stay in the area because I was down there for a while and I really enjoyed it. It was right in the heart of the Smoky Mountains. So, fishing and being outdoors, and anything outdoor related was fantastic. So I started with a small software company called Drake Software, and we built tax software.
Hmm.
And so that was very cool to me because I was building stuff, and I was like machine language doing forms and stuff for tax software, and I thought it was super cool. And so we would build stuff in the off season, the off tax season in April, from April all the way through. I'm doing phone support, and I'm configuring like 1200 baud modems and 14K modems, and helping them with getting connected to the program and things like that. So it's very hands-on, very technical, really down in the weeds. I love problem solving and learning, so that was super fun to me. So uh then came client server, and it was great to be down there, but there was a lot going on in the DC area.
Mhm.
So, back then my mom would send me clippings from the Washington Post about jobs and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, really? Like they're really gonna pay you to do this like that. So um I set up a series of interviews, packed up all my stuff, I headed home, and within a week I had, 5 interviews, and I'm interviewing and landed a job with KPMG Pete Marwick, right? So Big Six Consulting, right
Yeah.
in the heart of DC. So that was super exciting. I remember interviewing with them and getting the job and starting on a Monday, and they gave me a Diners Club card, and I traveled for 10 years developing
Wow.
software for state, local governments, big government agencies, whatever. It was fantastic. I kind of call Big Six Consulting, the Price Waterhouse, the Coopers, the Deloittes,
Hmm.
it's just consulting 101. It's kind of built in. And if you've been in this industry for 30 years, you recognize somebody that has that foundation. I'm nobody special, but it was just it was a really great time to be in the consulting realm. Like I said, did a lot of traveling, built a lot of systems, and traveled everywhere. I lived in Michigan for 2 years, in California for a year, and uh, South Carolina for a year, and just traveled, and young, and being able to see and do all that stuff, which is fantastic, and doing something that I enjoyed, but also building my consulting skills. So I remember starting KPMG as a staff programmer and getting my business card. And I was like so super proud of that. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so worked my way up, through the consulting realm, consultant, senior consultant, manager, senior manager, et cetera. So, the thing with Big Six Consulting is business development is built in from the ground up. Whether you're, an analyst, or you're a developer, or you're a manager, or whatever, you're always selling. And I don't say that as to, right, you're always just trying to bring in revenue. It's always, what can you do to help the government? And so if you deliver, I always say, if you deliver, if you build it, they will come. So delivery, in my mind, successful delivery, quality delivery was the best way to get to business development. So it's
Hmm.
kind of built in. It wasn't like, hey, I'm doing BD, whatever. But I'd go to the client, I'd be like, hey, if you thought about this, or if you did this, we could do this. And they're like, well, what's the ROI? Well, here. Oh, absolutely, let's do it. It's funny, I usually pushed harder for those things when I was somewhere like, San Diego or whatever, and I would stay an extra, hey, they want to build this, or they want to do this, and hey, it's going to be another 6 months, so I'm going to be out here. And my partner was like, hey, okay, whatever, no problem. So lots of very solid foundational consulting skills from that model. Yeah, so wow, that's a lot. What does that kind of answer the question of
Yeah,
where
that's interesting.
from and how I got
So, I mean, that's true classic computer sciencey programming geekdom, right?
it
Uh,
is. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
how does that transit? I mean, so how do you get from there to where you are today? I mean, how do you make that
So
transition from the geeky
yeah.
stuff to management, right? Somewhere
Yeah.
along the way, that transition had happened.
So that kind of happened for me just by design. So I'm sure you're probably aware. So KPMG Pete Marwick became KPMG Consulting, which was, shareholder based, et cetera, which later became Bearing Point. I was literally there for the better part of 15 years. So when you take little partner fiefdoms in a Big Six consulting firm, and then have to answer to shareholders, that goes over really well, right? So it went from, KPMG right to KPMG Consulting to Bearing Point to, so I'm just like, yeah, we're listing a little bit. Time to figure something else out. So, having all those skills, et cetera, I just put out some feelers, and then I wound up kind of I went over to Unisys, was over there for 6 years, and basically doing the same thing, program management. I will say my KPMG bearing point transition over to Unisys was probably one of the bookends of my career. So
Hmm.
I spent the better part of 10 or 15 years building systems for like back office stuff that nobody really saw or cared about. I mean, we did a lot of stuff for the Department of State, and that was super cool. I got to travel to all the embassies around the world and install software and do all that. But um, I'm a big fan of helping people. And so the citizen facing services piece of what I do from a software perspective, where I can take, hands on keyboard and actually make a difference in somebody's life was super cool. So I went over to Unisys and ran the FBI DNA CODIS program. So I know enough about DNA to be dangerous, not like Dexter dangerous, but it was just such a DNA, really? Like, sure, let's combine software and DNA. That sounds like a perfect marriage right there. So we did one of my mentors, Bob Bratt, was over there running the DOJ practice, and he brought me in, and we did like just classic capture, and it was just great. He brought me in, and we spent like May through like July doing the proposal, and we had everything set up, and it was just the way it was supposed to be, and we won, and we took the work from SAIC, and I was like, wow, I was so proud. Anyway, the system that we developed was for DNA profiles, and it's basically to search a DNA profile from end to end. And the way the FBI had previously had it, it took the better part of like 8 hours to search a profile over the entire million database, right? So you can
Wow.
imagine, right? So there was a huge backlog. I mean, year-long backlog. And I mean, these are people's lives. There are tragedies happening and loved ones missing, et cetera, et cetera. So we put together this proposal. We gave a demonstration during the orals presentation. I'll never forget it. And Unisys back in the day had the big computers, right? So we pieced together a couple computers. We went down there. We gave the presentation, and we searched one profile against the entire FBI database in about 2 minutes. And they're
Wow.
just like, wait a second, what are you doing here? What's the technology? Whatever. So we partnered with the University of Tennessee. We had some really sharp kids that were down there, and they built and they did everything in memory, and it was just fantastic. We got I call him the Michael Jordan of DNA. He was Dr. Chakraborty out of Chicago. We put all this stuff together. Anyway, long story short, it was just fantastic because we basically just doubled the time that they could search on a profile. And I remember going and being on the program. I went to the first CODIS conference in San Francisco, and you're in an auditorium of like 1,000 people, and you just hear these user stories of people that have lost loved ones or somebody's missing or whatever. And I mean, there wasn't like a dry eye in the room. So that culmination of doing all my software development and then bringing that kind of to the forefront was kind of like, yeah, man, I'm on the right path. But yeah, that was super cool. And the technology, coupled with the technology, there's this thing called familial DNA where, you know, they can search a profile and they know enough about the DNA to where they know it was somebody in your family, but they don't necessarily know it was you. But they
Right.
don't necessarily, the laws haven't caught up to that technology. I kind of liken it to, a car accident or somebody getting run over in a car or whatever, and you get like the first three digits of the license plate. But and then you take that to the DMV and you're like, oh, well, it's only these people, and you go knock on doors and stuff like that. You can't really do that the way the laws are structured. So it's kind of tricky, but that whole program was, in my mind, kind of the culmination of what I had done from a software development standpoint. And I was there for 6 years at Unisys, and then in the DOJ practice. And then we Bob was like, hey, we're kind of soup to nuts with regards to DOJ because we had the CODIS program, which basically convicted people and put them in jail, and then we had the asset forfeiture program where we took their stuff, and then we had the Bureau of Prisons program where we listened on phone calls and prevented future crimes. So we were kind of like all encompassing from I don't know, that kind of stuff really interests me. I love technology, and started to get a real hand into kind of organic growth and business development and things like that. And then Bob actually left and went somewhere else. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe it's time to do something different. So I went to a small business, and it was a cyber company. I hadn't touched cyber in my career yet. And I was like, wow, let's do some cyber. So I was there for 5 years and built a federal practice called Tangible Security, and did all kinds of cool cyber stuff. We did a lot of gray hat hacking, which is kind of friendly hacking.
Yeah.
You know, you you when you're going in to give a presentation in a bank, it's like, hey, check my my security posture and check this and check that. And we're taking selfies in the bank vault with like $100 bills and stuff, and like sending them to them. Stuff like that's just super fun. I would give my team a couple $1,000s and get devices and just tell them to hack into them, whatever you can do. So we're hacking into baby monitors and refrigerators and automobiles and all kinds of cool stuff. And then we say, hey, here are the vulnerabilities. We can fix them for you if you want. And 9 times out of 10, they did. Stuff like that was super cool. So the whole cyber thing, but I did a lot of um, capture and business development from there because there wasn't really a presence in the federal market. So true BD, true capture, and just kind of put those skills to use there. So the small business, you're kind of a one-arm paper hanger. It's like, hey, if you kill it, you have to eat it. So go out and win it and create the PMO and hire the people and stand it up and then go do the next thing. I don't like to do the same thing kind of over and over. I like to kind of be moving and, kind of in the space. So yeah. And then the BD stuff just kind of took off. And I really think that from a BD perspective, a capture perspective, you've got that technical background. You've got that consulting 101 type of experience that really helps you from a business development perspective in terms of understanding deals and how to go after them and things like that. So yeah, well, a lot of talking there. So
No, that's really
answer?
interesting. One of the things I liked equally working for a small company is that soup to nuts, right? That you
Yeah,
get to participate
yeah,
not only in winning the work, but then you also have a hand in, like you said, bring on the team, figure out how we're going to actually deliver what we said we were going to do,
yeah,
right? We won it, now we
yeah.
got to do it, and I absolutely love that.
You're touching finance, you're touching HR,
Yeah.
you're touching the PMO, you're touching technical delivery, you're touching everything, and it constantly changes and it constantly evolves. So that stuff interests me. So it interests me a lot. So yeah, lots of success there. And then came data, big data. So I went over to LexisNexis and did some AI and some ML and big data. And for me, data is everything these days. It's more valuable than gold or oil, if you will, if you have the data. And LexisNexis has been around for, oh my gosh, they've been around forever, and they've been collecting data like forever. And it's funny because if you ask somebody there, one of the senior executives was like, yeah, we're collecting all this data. I don't know what we're going to do with it. We're collecting it. And now they're sitting on like a mountain of data. It's so funny. Like all roads lead back to like LexisNexis and their data, or LexisNexis and their databases in terms of what's out there. And if you get pulled over for speeding, they're running your stuff through LexisNexis. If you're getting a mortgage or you're applying for this or applying for that, it's all LexisNexis. So then I kind of started building products based on that data, which was kind of interesting. How to build and market a product from a software conceptual standpoint, and then market that into the space. So maybe straddling the commercial side with a little bit, which was super cool to me. Really enjoyed that. Then I went to Booz Allen and did straight business development.
Yeah.
Was in a horizontal business in Booz Allen, and did deals that were 250 million above. Kind of enjoyed that. I like to win. I like the thrill of the chase. I love that. But again, it's back to that's all I was doing. And I in my mind, I kind of felt like I was jack of all trades because I'm doing DOE and I'm doing DOD and I'm doing FBI and I'm doing HHS, and I'm kind of I feel like to some degree the business development function needs to be embedded down in the delivery piece so that those folks truly understand what happens on a daily basis, especially for organic growth, in my mind. But yeah, that was that was fun. That was kind of interesting, but I'll be honest, I wasn't like all about it, etc. And then Karsun came up, and so I don't know if you know Sundar or not, but he's part
Yeah.
owner of Karsun, and we had met basically every year for coffee. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Oh no, you got to come over. Karsun's awesome. Karsun's awesome. And I was kind of at a point in my career where I was just like, yeah, I'm not really digging this. So I came over and started working on the FEMA project. And what's cool is I'm doing delivery, I'm doing BD, I'm touching kind of all the things that I like to do, and it's constantly changing, and I'm trying to grow the portfolio. And so it's really piqued my interest, and I really like it. I really enjoy it.
Wow.
So that's a lot. So
Yeah, that's
sorry.
awesome. So it
Sorry for all
sounds
that, but
like
yeah,
even though you're not maybe hands-on keyboard coding like you
no,
used to be,
no.
but you are definitely conceptually helping figure out what is it that we're going to do.
I know enough if that's in our swim lane,
Yeah.
or if that's in our, if that's in our quiver, so to speak, and we can do that. I like connecting the dots. I mean, we have clients, we have huge contracts at FAA, we have stuff at DHS, we have stuff at GSA, and we're obviously very tuned in to be grant SMEs. So, if there's an opportunity that comes out of the Department of Transportation, I'm like, hey, we've got FAA's transportation, we've got DOT, and we're those types of things, kind of putting all the pieces together. And the citizen facing services pieces is good. Even the project that I'm working on now, we're doing a big grants modernization program for FEMA called FEMA Go, and disaster relief for all the disasters in the world. And unfortunately, you don't have to look too far, whether it's floods, hurricanes, fires, etc. And this helps people be able to come on, get online and get a grant, either preemptively for something like, hey, there's a dam and it's kind of sketchy. I don't know if it's gonna, if it's gonna break or whatever, and get money for that to reinforce it, or just, hey, there was a fire or a flood or whatever. So, tribal agencies, territories, states, local, federal government, things like that. We process like billions and billions of dollars in federal grant money that folks need, and they go on and apply. And I kind of enjoy that too. So it's got a little bit of that CODIS feel to it in terms of citizen service and citizen facing and helping people, which I kind of really enjoy, just putting those software development skills kind of to use in the real world. I like that applying. I don't know. I sat through high school and stuff. And what am I going to do with this? Like, oh, what am I learning this for? What am I going to do? And, the whole computer thing like really clicked with me when my dad was like, doing that. I'm like, this is, and I did the video games and stuff, and it was fun. And then I'm like, this isn't a toy. This is like a powerful tool that I can build stuff with and help people. And I kind of enjoyed that. So yeah. So
awesome. So as you've gone through this journey, you've gone a varied path of different roles and different levels of responsibility. What's something you've witnessed that if we came to you, Jeff, and said, Jeff, what should change? What should we do better than we're doing today? And, maybe the change you might suggest is really large. And so maybe it's just, we should start thinking about ways to change this. What's something you think we could do better?
Wow. Lots of stuff. I think you and I earlier were talking about the procurement process a little bit, and not to throw stones at the procurement process or the government, et cetera, but actually going through the partners program and ACT-IAC and kind of sitting on each side of the aisle, understanding the federal perspective and understanding the vendor perspective. We did a lot of that role playing, right? It was pretty funny. I'm like, I was pretending to be a government person. I'm like, we're going to release this solicitation on Christmas Eve and it's due on New Year's, and those types of things. It's interesting to see the different sides. So I think everybody needs to have a seat in the other person's position, right? One of the first jobs I ever had was working at McDonald's. And I think it's like 1 in 3 Americans worked at McDonald's. I don't know what the thing is now. Anyway, there you go. See, 1 in 3. So that holds. So, the first thing they did when I got there, there's like, hey, today you're on the fry machine. Tomorrow you're on the filet machine. Then you're on the hamburger machine. Then you're on the bun machine. Then you're loading ketchup and ice and everything else. And so you get that complete perspective of how everything works. And we need to implement that somehow on the federal side. We need to implement that on the vendor side, and understand each other's position and help to make it better. It's a bit frustrating. I've been on, I don't know how many RFPs and et cetera, and obviously done a lot of BD and capture, et cetera, but it's broken. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be reformed. The protest thing is absolutely it's horrible. I don't have all the answers. I know that we need to come to the table and sit down. I mean, ACT-IAC is, obviously a good way for that to do that. But that's one of the things that I would change. I don't know how to rotate folks around. I know in some organizations, they do take federal folks and they put them in a commercial organization, and they let, for 6 months to a year, and they see how that works, and that and vice versa. So if we could do that, that would be fantastic, just to see where everybody sits. That's one of the things that I would change kind of like right out of the gate after, doing this for 30 years. So
I would agree with you. I think I've seen it more so in DoD, where people who are at the higher ranks, an opportunity to go work like at Cisco for a year or two, right?
Sure.
And then come back with that knowledge to the government.
Right.
I don't see it as much. I'm at my fifth federal agency, and I have not seen it as much in the civilian sector as you would hope it would be. I would agree with you, because ACT-IAC, I love ACT-IAC for that freedom of conversation, freedom of learning each other's perspective.
Yeah.
I would agree with you if we could rotate, right? Take a VP from some company and stick them in government for a while and send somebody down to their position, right? Just like companies will rotate people in the company. I've seen that with government executives, rotate a government executive around that.
It's funny because they'll do it within the organization, but they won't like cross it over, the things that really matter, right? So we need to somehow figure that out. I don't have all the answers, but I think that would be a huge step forward in the procurement process. So yeah,
be interesting kind of job share. I'm sure they have to work out all the conflicts of interest, but if they could work all that out, I think it would be a very
to
valuable.
scale. There has to be to scale, or some type of little prototype type thing going on. Like I think that we could learn a lot from that. So that's what I would recommend right out of the gate for sure.
It's good. So what's coming up for you, Jeff, or what's coming up for Karsun? What's coming up in the near future?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, honestly, after doing this for 30 years, I feel like I need to be in a position to start to give back. Like I said, I like to help people, whether it's senior citizens or the youth. I don't know. I feel like I have a fair amount to teach folks, whether it's about cyber or other things. I'm kind of getting at the stage of my career, like how much longer do I want to do this, right? Like, and I want to be able to be in a position to where I can do something that's beneficial, take all the technology and all the things that I've learned over the years and help people. So that for me on a personal level, obviously I want to be, somewhere where I can be outdoors and do outdoor stuff. So, head west, that type of thing, get kids through college, and then seriously give back to the community. That's what I really, so maybe in some type of teaching capacity, I don't know if I can help senior citizens with regard to cyber, to where they're not giving away their wealth for scammers and things like that. That would be of interest. Or just educating the youth. I mean, can you imagine like having a device like a cell phone, like for us, for me and you, like 20-25 years ago, like because you're not born with cyber. You're born as you were born, right? So hey man, here's a phone, and this is a piece of technology, and you can essentially do anything with this piece of technology. There's almost nothing that a handheld device can't do. And so you're gonna wield that technology and put it in the hands of a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. I mean, you could make some seriously bad decisions. So, maybe educating youth, helping senior citizens from a cyber perspective. I feel bad for folks that have been scammed or, whatever. There's some very basic cyber foundational principles that you could give them in like a 30-minute thing. Like, hey, that's a scam. That they're phishing. That's, and help them out from that perspective. So stuff like that interests me. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe I'm just, holding free classes for people. I don't know. I think that would be fun. I would enjoy that, putting all those things to use. So yeah. For Karsun, I don't know what's left for Karsun. I really like being at Karsun. I like the people. I obviously like the owners. I think it's a great opportunity. We're obviously looking to grow and build. And I think we've got a really good team, and I'm excited about it. And like we talked about before, I enjoy having the flexibility to work remote for a little bit. And I'm enjoying and having a good time. So things are good. So
awesome. Well, thanks, Jeff, for coming on the podcast. It's always great to catch up with you, and look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Absolutely. Let's get together at the next event and have a drink.